Okay, so we are expecting more people to join, but so we don't hold people up, we can make a start. We are recording the session, so anyone who joins late can catch up, and anyone who's not able to make it can obviously follow up on the recording itself. So I think we should probably make a start. Jenny, if you're happy. Yeah, cool. I'll stop sharing that slide there. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining today. So this is just a bit of a different session from us today, talking about the sort of foundations for success and large-scale transformations, focusing on the partnership between Headforwards and Cornwall Council. We thought rather than sort of presenting slides in the sort of more traditional fashion, that we would treat this more as a conversation, really. So you'll have me and Jenny chatting to each other. We've got sort of 4 or 5 themes that we want to cover, and we're planning to leave time for questions at the end as well. So yeah, just a conversation about what we've learned and sort of the plans that we've got in the partnership that we've got going here. Should we introduce ourselves first, Jenny?
Yep, sounds like
I'll let you go first.
Hi everyone, I'm Jenny Payne. I'm the Head of Customer Experience and Improvement for Cornwall Council. So I lead a team which looks after customer contact in things like the contact centre, manage feedback, compliments and so on, look after the digital side of customer interactions of things like website, and really importantly digital inclusion, which is ensuring we're able to get more residents of Cornwall access to digital. Thanks, Owen.
Thank you, Jenny. And I'm Owen Hodge, so I work for Headforwards. I'm sort of the delivery lead on the Cornwall Council contract, but also act as a product manager on our customer experience platform. That's the platform that builds out solutions based around Dynamics 365 Power Platform and sort of associated technologies. So yeah, I've been sort of embedded within the council for 4 years now, I think it's been. So just before we jump into the kind of the questions and the conversation, we have done a previous event, so where the recording is available, where we've gone into a bit more detail about the specific solutions and processes that we've built. But I thought I'd just take a couple of minutes to go over that again for anyone who's not seen that, just to help frame the conversation we're about to have. So yeah, we've been partnered up for about 5 years in total, between Headforwards and Cornwall Council. Started off in the kind of like agile, sort of helping Cornwall Council with its agile transformation and kind of setting up a product teams within the IT sort of organisation. And then we've helped to build 2 of the sort of enterprise teams, I guess you would call them, within IT. So one being the customer experience platform that I've mentioned, and the other one being the data and information teams that focuses around sort of Power BI and data and integrations and that kind of thing. We started internally probably for the last for the first couple of years around Dynamics. So we built in some efficiencies within internal HR processes. We helped with Cornwall Council's response to the pandemic and some other internal power apps that we've built. And then it's been more of a focus over probably the last 2 years, probably ish, Jenny, where we've been doing the more of the resident facing sort of transformation. So obviously the goal was always for Dynamics to be used in the contact centre and to be used for the majority of resident facing processes. We've only really been at that part for the last couple of years, really, after starting internal. And yeah, in that time we've done some cool stuff. So we've got Dynamics into the contact centre. So we pulled out the legacy contact centre application that's being used by the customer service agents and replaced that with Microsoft Dynamics. We've built the sort of MVP first iteration of the new resident portal for Cornwall Council, as well as a portal for councillors and MPs as well. And now we're sort of transforming process by process now off of legacy applications onto Dynamics. So a big focus of the last several months has been around the reported processes. So working closely with waste and public protection, things like noise and nuisance, abandoned vehicles, fly tipping, graffiti, and all those kind of report it processes. They've had our attention recently, and now we're moving into kind of things where residents might request and book services. We're moving into that space. So we're just transforming, migrating off of the legacy application, but taking the opportunity to really transform and make the most of the technology we've got. Cool. Hopefully that's enough detail. Jenny, did you want to add anything there?
No, I think that's a really good summary. Thanks.
Cool. All right, thank you. Okay, so yeah, we'll jump into sort of the conversation then. So we've got a couple of key topics we're going to touch on and just see where the conversation takes us, really. So And we're going to look at what realistic looks like when it comes to partnership and sort of these large scale transformations and managing expectations. We're going to look at starting point, like sort of where's the right place to start, or at least what we've learned. We'll talk about how to be well supported by technology partners, the lessons that we've learned along the way, and also the power of celebrating success. So there are sort of 5 key themes. So yeah, we'll start with the first one, Jenny, if you don't mind. So yeah, what does realistic look like when it comes to these large transformations, and how important is managing expectations?
Yeah, I think that for anyone who's ever done a tech transformation or attempted a tech transformation, there's a wave of excitement when you get sold the dream, and the kind of expectation that you will suddenly be able to buy this product, embed it in your organization, and within a few days, weeks, you'll have a far better, from my perspective, customer resident experience. I think the reality is it's never quite as exciting in those first few months than the sales pitch may have been. I suppose it's a bit like building a house. So when you go to build a house, you're all very excited about what the kitchen and the bathroom is going to look like, but there's a load of boring stuff that has to happen first, with planning applications and foundation and building control, and you don't see all the good bits. So I think for myself and colleagues at Cornwall Council, managing that stakeholder relationship with, we're investing in this change, it's going to take a while, but still keeping engagement on that time is a challenge. And I know Owen and I, we call them shiny things. How do we deliver things which generate some excitement, create buy-in across stakeholder groups, but also don't detract from building those solid foundations? So I think that's one of the things I'd say for anyone who's going on a large scale transformation. And we are definitely still learning. We are nowhere near the end. It's definitely a journey. And I think with the way technology is moving today, I don't think it will ever end. It's a constant iteration of what you were doing, and probably what our hopes were 2-3 years ago have changed. So our vision has definitely changed, and it's how do we adapt as we go along. So there are definitely challenges with large scale transformation, and it is very easy to feel frustrated, I suppose would be the word, that things aren't moving at the pace you'd like, and that is often creates a bit of a tension. So that's why it's important that whoever you work with and who you partner with, or the software solution you buy, you've got that relationship where you can have really honest conversations about how it's feeling, and how do we get some momentum on this, and how do we get some pace, because I think we all want things in a world where everything is instant. It feels really hard that you can't do transformation that quick. So I think that's been one of the challenges, not just for Cornwall Council, but I would imagine for a lot of organisations you work with, Owen. It's a challenge.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's that the reality and the balance of the sort of the pace expectation, but the understanding of the complexity, I guess, of the task that you're undertaking. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, that ambitions from 2 or 3 years ago, certainly 5 years ago, when the council first sort of like went for dynamics, if you like, the vision today is different to the vision from 5 years ago, because that has evolved, and the technology's evolved in that time. The product we've got now is very different to the one that we bought in like 5 years ago. And yeah, the pace is the interesting one, because when you're talking about like large scale platforms and enterprise platforms like this, where you need to build consistency in terms of how we build process and make sure that everything is, from a user experience point of view, for the resident is perfect, but also for the back office staff that are involved. And when we've got overarching strategic objectives like single view of the citizen, where with disparate data sources we want to try and pull together a single view of a citizen, that does take time, and there's a lot of the like you said, maybe the boring for our stakeholders sort of foundations that need to be put in place first for us to really enable those shiny bells and whistles later. But you need to show value at some point as quickly as you can as well to keep that engagement and buy-in.
Yeah, and I think that has been definitely some of the more difficult conversations we've had, Owen, hasn't it? How can we show what we're doing? I know we're doing stuff, you know we're doing stuff. How do we articulate that to the wider organisation without just saying, well, we've built this really good widget, doesn't mean anything to you, but it will help us in the future. How can we express that in a way that the organisation buys into and they see some form of momentum?
Sure.
Because I think when you're not involved in the project, it can look like nothing's moving. But it seems like we've been doing that for ages. Why haven't we moved on? Why isn't that resolved?
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's really important that you can have those honest and open conversations and compromise on some things. There's definitely a level of compromise with, okay, I think we need to do this to manage stakeholders, even though the logical sense would be to do that. Like, is there a way we could do it? So yeah,
and we've done that a couple of times, haven't we? Where we've gone for the where we have delivered some value or some shiny things like up front or early on, and that might have like a slightly that might then push out your end date for migration, for example, out a little bit. So there are trade-offs to be had, but that's allowed us to deliver, like say, shiny, valuable bits. And it's not this constant balance, constant conversation. And I think you're right, having that open, transparent relationship where you can have those tough conversations with each other has been the key in this, probably.
Yeah. And I think the council, not unlike other large organisation, it is complex. There are so many different parts of our machine.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to do this level of transformation, it is hard to get the buy-in from colleagues, stakeholders, when there are so many other pools on their time. So I think that is also one of the challenges in any kind of transformation, regardless of the organisation or the industry.
Yeah.
Is how do you get that time from people?
Yeah, time with process owners is absolutely key, and we'll probably come on to that in a little bit, actually, is when we talk about sort of what successful looks like and those sort of lessons we've learned, and that's absolutely one of them. Just going back to the digital transformation piece, one thing I've found that it's tempting for everyone involved in a digital transformation to do it's quite easy to focus on the technology and maybe the shiny things and kind of sometimes ignore the underlying business process. And you've heard me say many times, Jenny, like let's look at the business process here in a tech agnostic way before we start throwing technology at it. I think that's from a stakeholder management, expectation management sort of point of view, that's something I've seen as well. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. I totally agree. I think we've all been to a conference, we've all read the article, we've all maybe seen something in the media about how technology is changing the workplace, and you hook on to that. And so then I would come to you with, well, I need this. And I think what you sometimes forget is, what does that mean for the user? And one of the things I'm continually saying at the council is we need to look from the outside in, because we often are, it's not unlike lots of other industries, we can design from the inside, guessing what our customers, users need, and it needs to be more from the outside in. And also, does that process make sense? So for instance, you could say, well, I think we need some kind of chatbot to do that. But being able to have those open conversations, say, is that the right solution? Do you really need it to do that? Would that make sense for the customer? as against, right, we need a chatbot, let's just get a chatbot in. So I think some of that challenge is really healthy, although can be difficult at the time, because I may have been wedded on having a chatbot.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, that's that trade-off, isn't it, in terms of, you know, if we identified that as if we can nail this and turn it around relatively quickly, that will, you know, buy us time for some of the rest of it, because that shows that we're on the right path and we've done a shiny thing. You know, we're coming around now to reviewing that and doing maybe iteration 2 of that chatbot, but we've got more process now migrated onto the platform, so that opens up the possibility for us to do more, we call them transactional chats, don't we, where you can actually request or report something via the chatbot, not just ask it like an FAQ based sort of question. Because we've got more foundations in place now, we're going to look at it again. So
I think the other thing is, I've gone back, I think I'm going back a bit now, so I apologize. I think there's that dream you're sold, and the kind of what you believe you're going to get. It sometimes takes a very long time to get to that point, and I think that's been a challenge for us as well. It's that kind of out of the box solution which you think you're able to buy and just plug in. It's never really quite like that, which I think has been difficult for me to understand, for some of my colleagues to understand, and also for some of the more senior stakeholders, because we are putting a lot of investment into these tools, and then it seems like, wow, we have to then build more and more and customize and develop it this way, when you would think, wow, I would have thought I could just plug that in and use it. But it's just never that easy, and I don't think they sell you that bit when they sell you the solution. I don't think that's always as clear.
I would agree with that totally. You know, and I've said this before in a few conversations, that out of the box, if we just take the Dynamics tool, for example, fantastic tool. It's one of the sort of industry leading case management CRM systems out there, but it's not been built specifically for Cornwall Council. So Microsoft ship it, and there's loads of really cool out of the box features that do just work. But then Cornwall Council, like any organisation, will have nuance in its process and complexities and things going on with data that mean that you do need to spend time still setting this thing up. And you are right, that's the bit that's often missed off the sales brochure, probably from any vendor, you know. It's
not unique to Dynamics. I think it's anything you buy. It's that bit. What does that mean when it lands in your organisation? What will be the things you'll need to change, and what will that do to the kind of out of the box ability of it, which I think has been a challenge for us.
Cool.
I mean, I just want to talk a little bit about, if possible, I'm probably stealing your questions now.
That's good.
About the working together part of how we've tried to work together with Headforwards. I think when we started on this journey, we realised we didn't have all the skills within our organisation to do this, and we'd need to work with a partner or partners on this. And it's how do you get them to feel like they're as invested in Cornwall Council as I am? And do they have the passion for the organisation as I do? And I think we've found a really good balance with our relationship with Headforwards on that. To the point, I would say that the majority of colleagues in the council don't know who works for Headforwards and who works for Cornwall Council. There is an assumption that we all work together, which is the right way. And I think that's really integral to the success of a relationship. Now, it does help, Owen, you're a customer of Cornwall Council because you live here. So that's a bonus. So you're living in the county and actually benefiting and seeing it through a resident's eyes is definitely an advantage, because some of these processes we're looking at, some of this transformation we want to do, it's affecting you, your family, your friends. it's the things that your mates moan to you about in the pub. Have you seen that pot hasn't been fixed? Oh, why have they changed this? Why'd you do that? And that's what's great, is it feels like it is a partnership.
Oh yeah, I would agree, and that's exactly what I say to people when they're even when I'm talking to people that are going to join the team. I'll say, if you're a fly on the wall in our next team meeting, you wouldn't be able to tell who within this team of 20 that we've got now in the CXP team, who works for the council and who works for Headforwards, because we are like fully immersed, augmented, all those kind of words, you know. And I think that does really help. You know, we've never had to get a contract out to review what was promised 5 years ago and why haven't you delivered it, and then no awkward conversations like that. So we are able to have this safe space where we can challenge each other, if you know what I mean, and have sometimes difficult conversations, but without any concern of the more traditional client supplier boundaries that might be there in more traditional arrangements. So it is a true partnership for sure.
And that would be failure if we were having to refer to a contract. It would be total failure. I think, regardless of any kind of relationship. But no, it works, and it's great that there is this. You're embedded in the organisation. You're helping to upskill our teams so that they are developing the skills to manage this platform in the future, which is great. Because it isn't something that you necessarily can just learn that quickly. There is an element of learning as you go, isn't there, with it?
For sure, I think that's key. And again, that's a really good example where we've got developers from all sorts of different backgrounds actually within our team, and that's even within the sort of Headforwards contingent as well, where we've got the CXP team primarily does build solutions on, for example, Dynamics, but we've dropped into that pool of developers also what I call traditional software developers, some who haven't actually used Dynamics before, but that's because we acknowledged that there's other parts of this platform, like the My Cornwall portal, which is a website. So you need web developers, and more often than not you need to integrate between different systems to move data around, so we need sort of full stack developers for that. And so we've got this really good blend within our team, and I always say it allows us to use the right tool for the job when we're coming up against a problem or business process that needs transforming. Working alongside council developers, and like I say, that upskilling, working together, pairing up on stuff. Again, you wouldn't be able to tell who was who, but there is that knowledge share is constantly happening. The other bit that I like to talk about around the partnership is around recruitment actually as well, because we've obviously we've not just been a sort of technology partner for Cornwall Council. In a way, we've also been a recruitment partner too. So within the council team, the developers are within the CXP team that work for the council. A couple of them have actually come through via Headforwards, if you know what I mean, where we've sort of recommended them to the council because the council has internal positions that need to be filled. And then most recently, we've had a really successful trainee program. So I think Charlie literally last week has now moved across from working for Headforwards for the last 12 months into a council position. Which has been great.
Yes, it's really, really good. It's really good. And it's great that we're able to have that kind of shared career path for people, which is really positive. And the fact, if we go back to, you can't tell who works for Headforwards and who works for Cornwall Council, we just all work on this project, is I guess it doesn't matter. Exactly. It doesn't matter, does it? It's a positive thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think we'll be looking to do that again. It's a really good way, that model of sort of bringing people in, whether they, it's usually people that are maybe doing a career switch or are fresh out of some sort of educational setting where they're coming in with not tons of experience, but have all the right skill sets that we know they will turn them into a really good developer for the future. And we sort of wrap them in a bit of a Headforwards bubble for 12 months or whatever period we feel we need. And then, but the end goal, let's say that career path is that we move them into the council. So we'll be looking to do that again pretty soon. Just around that, because we're talking about people and the team, one of the areas I wanted to talk about, which sort of fits under the sort of where to start if there's other organisations out there. And I've talked about, we've got a team of 20 now, for example, in the CXP team. We didn't just land a team of 20 on day one. So one of the bits we were going to talk around was around that sort of how you resource and set yourself up for success from that point of view. you got any thoughts and learnings there that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think we did start slowly because we were all learning what this meant, and I think we were slightly thrown off course a bit with the pandemic because we'd only just started and then we were given that gift. So our focus definitely changed and what we were looking at changed. So I suppose that may have accelerated us in some parts because we had to make some very quick solutions to solve problems there and then, but also may have slowed us down a bit because we were less focused on transformation and more focused on just managing the pandemic for the residents of Cornwall and all of the challenges that brought. And then I think if I could go back, I probably would have had a few more people at the start, probably, because I think to be able to show some transformation, to show some of those shiny things we talk about, would have been maybe a bit easier at the start. Post-pandemic, when we were there, maybe it would have been easier, because I think we felt we were in a bit of a place of not really moving forward for a little while, because we probably didn't have the scale. And it isn't easy to do that because that requires investment. So you can't just suddenly turn on a load of resource. You've got to have the investment to do that. But I suppose if I was doing this again, I would look to probably increase that resource a bit earlier so that we were able to do that foundation layer. If I go back to my house analogy, that planning, all of those basic bits a bit with a bit more resource to allow us then to showcase some of the stuff we've done a bit faster. But I think there were factors we did it the way we did it. And it was, what was great was the reaction to the pandemic, and some of the solutions that were developed were brilliant and they were really quick, and we've been able to use some of that as part of our transformation going on. Some of that capability that was built has been able to be used for other solutions. But I think we were slightly hampered in the first 18 months with the pandemic, with the focus being on the pandemic.
No, that's a really good point, actually, around that sort of that resource. But I think one thing we've also learned is that controlled growth, there is benefit of that controlling the growth as well. So I agree that at that time when we're doing the foundations, I think some more resource in the team would have enabled us to go quicker at that point. We've also seen there where we've reacted to a demand for growth because, you know, we unlocked some funding, so we want to go quicker, so let's go find people. And we landed, I think it was probably early last year in 2023, we had like 4 or 5 people into the team, all within like the same kind of 2-week period. That does have a knock-on effect then to the team's productivity, because obviously even if they're really experienced and great developers, they're still new to the team. They need to learn the ropes and learn the way of the team. And when you've got 4 of that people landing, so I think one thing I've learned is we're growing right now, we've added a couple more people to the team recently, is to try and just stagger it a little bit, even if it's just by a couple of weeks at a time, and not just like, you know, because that also, controlling the growth allows the team to keep moving and to keep developing and not have that distraction, if you like, of having to bring on and induct, you know, a whole, you know, if you try to double team overnight, that would be quite disruptive, for example. So controlling the growth is key. And you're right about the having more people early on. And if I go back in pre the stuff we were doing around the pandemic, I guess there's always going to be in any organisation internal factors and funding constraints, which mean we can't just land loads of people on day one. You know, for quite a long time there were myself and 2 or 3 developers probably for, you know, the best part of a couple of years at that point. Okay, so that's all good. Do you think there was any benefit? I've mentioned that we started internal, you know, we're doing internal process efficiencies mainly around HR, then we did stuff obviously in response to the pandemic, and it's really only been the last couple of years where we've been doing that, our focus on the customer big program. It's really pros and cons of starting internal. You know, Would you say?
I think there's pros in that you are testing it in a more safe environment, so that if you're doing something it doesn't quite work, it's not necessarily going out to your customer group, your resident base, and attracting negative. If it goes slightly wrong, there isn't that negativity associated with it and the reputation risk. So I think that's a pro. The pro that colleagues get to see stuff happening, which is really positive. But then I suppose one of the negatives is some of our most used processes, our highest demand, are external. So to truly see that efficiency, to drive, efficiency across the council, to be able to do some of those bigger processes is definitely advantageous, because you then can see true benefit, as in the amount of time a member of staff is taking in that process, or more importantly, a customer resident. So if you're reducing the amount of time it takes a customer to do an interaction with us, that's got to be a positive. So we're an easy to deal with business. That's got to be good.
I think we've really seen just going back to the building blocks thing, I think we've really seen that momentum kick in, even just as recently as kind of towards the end of last year and into this year. I think a really good example of that is around that in that reporting process space. The first process we built, where we were having to build components for the first time around like mapping, so resident clicking on a map to identify where the thing is they're reporting, took us, I can't remember exactly how long, but it took us a while to get through that bit. That's quite a complex component, integrating with another enterprise platform at the council. But then the most recent one we've picked up, we've turned it around in a single sprint, because all the building blocks are there now, and a lot of these processes do have commonality, so we're able to reuse. So yeah, I think that's and then if I think about what the transformation we did and we're still doing in the contact centre, we took our time with that. We didn't just do it quickly. We spent a lot of time working with managers in the contact centre to make sure we are developing it right and not just putting a tech focus on it. And we have seen that that's created efficiency. The way we answered calls has changed, but it's changed for the better. And it's changed for the better for both the customer agent and, more importantly, the customer. So some of those questions we were asking whenever anyone rang in, we've stopped asking because they were not needed. They were not essential. But for many years, we've done it that way. So being able to challenge what we do, look at it from the end to end, is that the right thing to do? Does this make sense? And also that tension that healthy tension between developer and business user is really good. Because I think, a developer will say, well, that doesn't make sense doing it that way. And then the business owner will say, hold on, but this is how it works. And I think there's some really good tension, which hopefully drives far better customer results, I'd hope. I agree. That's a really, really good example of that. Putting the actual business process like review and analysis before we just started throwing technology at it. So rather than going, okay, we're migrating from one CRM platform, case call management solution in the contact center, to a new one, let's just copy it. And what does the old one do? Okay, well, I will just build that in the new system. We actually did that stop, pause and think moment and went, hang on a minute, let's actually review this, and flip around the order that the contact center are asking questions and make some of them you only ask certain questions based off of the process, maybe, rather than always asking the same question up front. And that's created efficiencies, you're right, but it's also helped us use that same approach now with lots of other projects and teams that we work with, constantly
it's definitely it's sometimes, I think, for anyone listening, yes, that does take longer, but the end result is better. It's often we're under pressure as business leaders to get quick solutions, to do it the quickest way, but it's sometimes is better to take a bit longer to get to a better solution, which is more sustainable. And from my perspective, and I'm being very customer centric, I know, but if it keeps that customer, if it's a far better customer experience, if it's creating less failure demand because it's been designed better from the start, that's got to be good.
Yeah, for sure.
But it is very easy to think, and you can't help but be tempted to try and do it quickly, which isn't always right. Sometimes it's good to do things quick. Absolutely. I will say, Owen, but not all the time.
No, yeah, for sure. And well, like I said, the pace comes now because we put building blocks in place that we can reuse. But you are absolutely right. You know, more time spent like around a whiteboard and planning and talking about stuff does save time, both from the development point of view, because then what we're developing is cleaner, better understood, not ambiguous, and the process has been simplified probably from those conversations. But it obviously then adds that value as well. It's like you say, we're able to save time within the actual business process itself. That's a really good example. So we've sort of touched on the fast changing technology bit, but I'm just looking at the time in terms of sort of making sure we cover most of the topics we wanted to chat about. But there's definitely something worth talking around the fact that, due to sort of evergreen iterative change of these products that we're building on, they are, well, like I said, constantly changing. So the product we've got now is very different to the one from 5 years ago. And I think there's a real importance of enabling the team to sort of stay ahead of the curve. And that's actually something that when we've spoken to other organisations, both from a Headforwards but also from a Cornwall Council capacity, Jenny shared what we've done with Dynamics, for example, in the contact centre. It's quite nice that we are being recognised for that work as being ahead of the curve and cutting edge, and people will use those sort of words, which is really good. But it's important to give the team that time. I think there's time and space to stay ahead of the curve of the ever-changing technology. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's very easy for organisations to just get focused on delivering. Many years ago, I went to a talk with a big technology organisation who said that they gave time to all their developers to kind of do innovation, to do things they wanted to do, to play with the tools to see what they could do. And I think there's something about that I hope we encourage our colleagues to do that. And it does change. This is what's so scary, isn't it? I mean, ChatGPT wasn't a thing a few years ago for us. Now we're trying to work out, how do we embed that kind of technology and that capability into our website? We weren't even thinking about that 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
And now you feel, if we don't do that, we'll be behind the curve. We'll totally be behind the curve, because our customers will expect that. If we think about the next generation of customers for Cornwall Council, they're not looking for an online form. They're looking for AI to tell them what to do or to advise them what to do, and to do a load of it for them. So it's continually changing, and I feel a bit of a dinosaur at times. But it is we definitely have to. I think I've always said we need to design whatever we're designing for 5 years in front, not for today. What do we need in 5 years' time? But that's really hard with the pace of change at the moment. It's really hard to guess. I once met someone who called themselves a futurologist. Great job title. I think we need a bit of a futurologist at the council sometimes.
No, that's absolutely right. And so we definitely give that space. And again, I just want to touch back to the partnership, because of the trust that we have and the relationship we have as a partnership, we do give that space to the developers. So we have a series of what we call them tech sprints, or technical sprints throughout the year, where that is a sprint which is aimed at it's like developer driven investigations of work, and sometimes that's tackling things like tech debt, but it's down to the developer to almost choose what they do for that sprint. And 9 times out of 10 the guys will be looking at the new technology that's coming down the line and how we can work that into processes that we've built or are building out. And they'll build proof of concepts, and not to give too much away to you, Jenny, but the developers are looking at, for example, even within the report it processes, which we've just transformed and made like hopefully 10 times better than they have been. we're now looking at how we can use AI models within these processes and do more with the upload of a photo, establishing what's being reported and where it is and that kind of stuff. And we're actively developing that out now as a sort of proof of concept within the platform. But
brilliant. When will I have that? Next Monday?
I can't commit to that, unfortunately. But giving that space and time, again, if this was if we it could be quite easy to look at that and go, well, no, I want you focusing on the things that I'm telling you to develop 100% of the time, because we were able to have that little bit of scope to say, actually, we're going to keep a bit of time back to do these cool investigations. That will only, the council will only benefit from that later. Yeah.
No, it's good. And ultimately, we make it easier for the residents of Cornwall to interact with the council, which isn't something they all necessarily want to do that often. But if we can make it as simple as possible for when they need to, that's got to be good.
Sure.
Got to be good.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, we're almost at the point where we're going to pause for questions, but just the last topic for us to chat about is the power of celebrating success. So you're shouting about successes. How do you think we've gone about that, and what is the benefit of celebrating success?
There's definitely a benefit. I don't think we've probably done it enough, Owen. I think we've often got so focused on getting the thing out the door that we've failed to go back and really celebrate it. I think we've got better, but we probably should shout louder. And I think there's also a stakeholder bit in here where we probably haven't celebrated enough some of the things we have delivered to give that kind of stakeholder reassurance that things are moving. And I think that sometimes happens because you're just caught up in it. But I know that we're really proud of a lot of the stuff we've delivered, but we probably should shout a bit louder at some of the stuff we've done. We've got some exciting things happening. The My Cornwall portal, where residents can log into the website and create an account which shows them things like their council tax balance and other things. More stuff coming on in the future. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
But it's exciting if you're in my job. But that makes it easier, makes the council less confusing as a resident. Where do I go? What am I looking for? If it's all in one place, if you report a pothole, the progress of that is shown in My Cornwall, not now, but hopefully in the future. That's got to be good. And those are things definitely worth celebrating. But yeah, I think we've done some of it really well. I think we probably could do it better. And I think, Owen, both you and I need to be more on top of celebrating a bit more than we do.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. There's a lot of power in celebrating that success. And I think you've mentioned we've been better at it more recently. And that's probably because the things that we can celebrate now are the shinier things, or the things you can see and touch. So we've made a big, a good sort of like a bit of an internal roadshow of taking that with the report it process, the success of the pace of development and how much we're doing and all the cool stuff in it much better. But it's finding the success stories in that, the less shiny stuff, the stuff that maybe stakeholders actually might not be that interested in, but that all that effort that's gone into the foundations that you've mentioned earlier, but finding the success stories in there, because again, the more we sing about the success, the more trust we then get, the more empowerment we get, and it's good for the team as well, isn't it, to be celebrated. But I have touched on a couple of times that when we do sort of demo or talk to other councils or Microsoft themselves, they're quite complimentary of the work we've been doing, which is always reassuring. It's like, oh yeah, you're really making cutting edge use of these tools. No one else is actually quite as ahead of this as you are, and you're at the cutting edge. We hear that a lot. So yeah, it's nice.
That's good.
Cool.
That's good.
Okay, I think we've covered most of the topics that we wanted to cover, which is cool. Obviously, no, we haven't got a huge turnout here, but if there's any questions from the people that have turned up this morning, I think you can probably write them in the chat, or you can put your hand up and we can unmute you. So yeah, we'll hand over to the audience has any questions.
We've stunned them. We've stunned them, Owen, into silence.
We've got hand ups from Councillor Crabtree. Let me see if I can. Hi, Councillor Crabtree.
Good morning. Jenny looks terrified now.
No difficult questions. Difficult questions are for Owen.
That's
I
what
do
she said.
simple ones.
That's what she said in an email to me yesterday. I joined purely out of curiosity, not knowing what been involved. Very, very interesting. I've learnt a lot, and especially about Report It. 99% of Report It is no problem. My big issue on Report It is when you're trying to report a streetlight fault.
Okay.
That one just keeps bouncing back all the time. So maybe that's something we looked at, especially when you get a section where there's 4 or 5 streetlights out of action in one place. You can't report it by putting the little sign by each lamppost as such. You just got
Okay.
to put some extra comments in there, but
Okay. Something for us to look at. Yeah.
Otherwise, I've a very interesting session. So not a complicated question.
Thank you.
I've been good to you, Jenny.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Owen.
Thanks, Councillor Crabtree. Yeah, that's a good point actually. And with any of these reported processes that we're building out, the benefit of building out the way we have, which is with consistency and approach across all of these things, so is that we'll be able to provide more visual and better sort of management reporting. And one of the other things reported processes is to prevent duplicate reports. So when a resident or someone in the contact centre is talking to someone who's reporting something, whatever it might be in one of these processes, actually showing the existing cases, it sounds simple, but showing the existing cases on that map. So you can say, oh yeah, I can see that that's already been reported actually, is a real benefit. That saves so much time for the back office teams from having to manage duplicate cases and close things off. We're building in this functionality where you can go, okay, I don't need to raise a new case because I can see that thing's been reported, but we have this notification option in there now. We've built this nice notification table so you can say, but I do want to know when you've resolved the problem. Cornwall Council will pick up the things being reported. So I will subscribe to that already existing case as an interested party so that I'll get an automated email to say when it's been resolved. And so all these little things that we're doing, when we build them, we can then roll out across all of the reported processes we've built because we're building it in that sort of consistent way.
Good. Okay. I think they're not going to ask us questions, Owen. I think we're off the
That's
hook.
all good. Okay, yeah, let us off lightly. That's absolutely fine. Well, we can probably wrap it up there then. So thank you very much, Jenny, for your time this morning.
No problem.
Been great chatting about the successes and that kind of stuff. I think it's just nice to pause and reflect like this, to be honest, from time to time on the work we've done and the partnership we've got. So yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for everyone for joining. Hope you found it useful, and we'll probably put on some more of these type of events in the future.
Thanks, Owen.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Cheers all.
Bye.
Thank you.